Okay, in this video we're going to watch the Mythic Dungeon International. It's World of Warcraft 2025 Group A MDI Mythic Plus Group A Day 3. So we're gonna jump a little forward because let's move on. It's a group of 5 people going on a timed Mythic Plus Keystone Dungeon, and the fastest person, the best time, least best gets to move forward. Mythic Dungeon International.
Welcome back to the Mythic Dungeon International. Season 3 is off to an impressive start, but our Group A teams have to lock in today if they want to conquer their competition and move on to our global finals. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss a second of the action once our runs get going. I'm Rookery, your host, and I'm here with Zyronic, Nagura, and Dratnos to kick things off here at the beginning. And to catch you up on what happened yesterday, we'll start things off with our Tettle's Top 5 segment presented by Zyro. Sorry, Zyro, we really were looking to rename the segment for you, but it's kind of hard to find anything that alliterates with Zyro.
And I don't want to take it away from him. It's his top 5. So, I'm just standing in for him today.
Well, I think you're going to do great. I believe in you. Chat, give Zyronic your energy, but Zyro, can you take us through your Tettle's Top 5 highlights from Saturday?
Let's give it a shot. Let's go into the top 5 here from yesterday. If you missed the action, I Do It, unfortunately, was our team that got knocked out yesterday, but not before showing us some of the coolest runs in Arakara, clutching out 2 back-to-back runs on 20 and 21. This first one, it looked like they weren't going to be able to get it done, but they went overtime and still timed the key. Due to the round down rule, they were able to get that key done, move on to the 21. And again, in the 21, on Kikatal the Harvestar, it looked like they had no time left, but with a burst of damage at the end, they were just able to get it done in the last 5 seconds. Very impressive runs from them. In the number 4 slot, we have Destro Warlock damage in the Operation Floodgate from Polish Mountain. When the cooldowns run out for the Hunter and the DK, the Warlock keeps accelerating. Is this potentially going to be a tech pick that we'll see from some of our other teams today in this Floodgate to get higher and higher key levels done? We'll have to see if they're going to be able to pull that one off today. It looked very, very powerful for Polish Mountain yesterday. In the number 3 slot, a few clips here from Holy Method. First off, in the Ecodome Aldani. Tettles already showed this off yesterday, but I wanted to highlight a particular double skip that made this run so consistent for them. Gingy pulling these destroyers that they skipped earlier on in the key off to the side with Turtle. Whippy walking ahead to the Sentinel here, pulling that also off to the side, and then Shadow melding it off, allowing the team to skip through and skip those dangerous high health mobs. Really put them far ahead in the key. In the number 2 slot, again, Holy Method in the Operation Floodgate. They were able to deal with this 21 very cleanly yesterday, and part of that was due to the decisions they made after dealing with the Demolition duo. Normally, your Ellie Shaman has to choose. Do I use my Ascendants on the Demolitionist pack, or do I save it for Big Mama? Method says, neither. We pop it on the Kelps, we pop the Ascendants here, we do the Demolition pack, and then we go to Big Mama afterwards, so we have Ascendants on cooldown. Yeah, I see you delay the second Lust, but in the end, it made the run overall faster. They got this 21 done a lot faster than anyone else yesterday. Can they maybe do that in the 22? We'll have to find out. And finally, I think the most important one today, Holy Method pushing the dungeons to the limit yesterday. They have this 23 Eco Demaldani dead to rights, but it took them nearly 2 hours to even show us what the last boss would look like. So many of the pulls in this dungeon are incredibly dangerous, but with a little extra pulls, they could definitely get this done. And I think for our other teams, in order to be one of the top 2 teams to qualify through the global finals, which is the final play today, that's what you're playing for, I think you're going to have to get this dungeon down. Can Holy Method pull it off? Can Polish Mountain or Anti-Clockwise pull it off? Have to stay tuned to find out.
I know, you gotta watch. We'll be watching, that's for sure. Seeing these 23s, seeing Holy Method as well, their Eco-Dome is so smooth. It's so good. And even with some of those deaths trying to get that 23, we could see it within their reach at the end of the day. So I agree, Zyra. I think we're gonna have to see some 23s as well. These teams are gonna have to really pull out all the stops. But while we know that Holy Method is looking strong, our second spot is something that is strongly contested over today, which is also a spot into the global finals. And only our top 2 teams will be moving on, so no doubt our players are keeping an eye on the leaderboards as much as we are. So Nagura, where are we coming into Group A on the leaderboard for our finals here? And what do we think our teams are working on today?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the leaderboard, of course, Holy Method in that top spot with all of those keys being a world record as well, which is incredibly impressive. But then, as you said, the top 2 teams are going to be making it to the global final, so that's what they're aiming for here. Polish Mountain and Anti-Clockwise both on 108 scores, so this is going to be incredibly close between them. And I do also want to mention that Holy Method, even though they have all of these world records, they're only 1 point ahead. So I don't think this is going to be super easy for Holy Method either. With only 1 dungeon being announced, there's going to be a lot of high key pushing done. And honestly, anything can happen. 9 to 5, they are pretty far behind. They're going to have a lot of catching up to do. But with only that 1 dungeon is being added, even they technically can make it to the top 2 as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much potential if you can really land those runs. So, Nagura, I'm excited. I can't wait to see. It's been amazingly close, and we are literally just in Group A weekend. So these teams are just bringing it right from the get-go. And while our teams have been dealing with the dungeons, dealing with competition, coming into this new season, they've also been navigating the mathematical pitfalls of our spec ban rule, which we introduced last season, but we've kind of refined for this season. So, Dratnos, you've kind of been in charge of this all weekend, so we'll let you keep running with it. But can you remind everybody about the updates to our spec variety rule?
Yeah, so now that our teams are always playing for these 3 days, we're doing 2 restrictions. So after Friday, we're taking a look at your 2 most played specs, breaking the ties in the order of tanks and then healers and then DPS, and we're restricting those for the rest of the weekend. Then after Saturday, we're again looking at your 2 most played specs from Friday and Saturday that aren't already the restricted ones, and we're restricting those for Sunday as well. So that means going into Sunday, these teams have 4 specs restricted. They've done a lot of work yesterday and the day before to avoid restricting any of those kind of big meta specs for the most part. Although you can see 9 to 5 in particular may have some challenges today in that department.
Yeah, they've got a little something they're going to have to work around. I mean, we can see here the actual bans that ended up being implemented. We had some speculation about it last night. But Zyra, looking at it, what did the teams end up banning out, and how do you think it's going to affect them?
Yeah, I think the big stories here are Holy Method actually managed to work their way around the ban rule correctly this time. They managed to ban out none of the top meta specs. Good for them. Claps, everyone. Clap. No, but
Well
they've got their meta specs ready to go. Anti-Clockwise Polish Mountain went through it a little differently, but they still have the top specs available for whatever dungeon we get today. They banned out the Boomkin instead of the Resto Shaman and the Marksman for Polish Mountain. Like Dratno said, though, 9 to 5, they banned out Frosty K. Not something you ideally want to ban out, but again, at the same time, 9 to 5 is very far behind in the competition. They would have to have some sort of Herculean effort today in order to catch up. I have heard, though, in terms of variety, though, that we're potentially going to see some very interesting picks from 9 to 5 today.
I know. I loved yesterday you're tossing out that Og, Og Evoker or Evoker is something we haven't seen here yet, although we've seen a lot of specs. So Jisoo may be promising to give the people what they want, or at least some of the people, the Evoker players in chat. So we'll see. We'll see. I always like seeing the variety. And hey, if you are playing that catch up, why not have some fun with it and give it your best? I know 9 to 5, no matter what, they know how to put in that work. They do it every single day, 9 to 5. So I think they can get some work done today too. But they're going to have to tackle our dungeons, not only the ones that we have already seen in the pool. We had 3 on Friday, 2 more got added in yesterday, and today we have 1 more to go. So Nagura, dungeons, what are they going to do? How are they going to approach them? And what sort of challenges will they bring to the teams?
Yeah, so there we are again, but it's going to be our last dungeon for today. It also does start 1 key level higher, so it's going to be a plus 19, which means that they're not going to be spending too much time in Gambit, right? Now, Gambit is a key that can go really high, and that's also something I'm wondering about. Like, is the 23 something that is actually a requirement to be able to make it to the top 2 and to make it to the global final, with the tiebreaker in mind as well, the highest key tiebreaker? Yeah, I think Gambit is going to be very interesting. I want to see those teams do the highest key levels. Maybe even 24 is something that is on the table as well. That would be crazy.
I would love to see that. It would be amazing. I mean, Tazavesh, of course, being the mega dungeon that we've seen broken up into these 2 portions, but each of them kind of carry their own challenges. I don't know, Dratnos, what do you think is the potential highest key out of all of these?
Well, so if you look on the live servers, none of these keys have been done higher than 22, but the key that has the most 22s on live is, in fact, Gambit. So that makes me think, we saw Ecodome was very clearly possible at 23. I think that means Gambit probably is as well. And like Nagura mentioned, our first tiebreaker is always which is the high, have you done a higher level key than everybody else? If you've done a 23 and a 21 and the other team's done 2 22s, you win that tiebreaker at the end of the day. So focusing on dungeons like Gambit and Ecodome, which I think have the most potential to go up to that level 23, will be pretty important, as the level of competition here for those 2 tickets out of this group is very tight. We have 1 point separating first place from third place right now, which means that a lot could change depending on who does well in Gambit today, whether there is a team that can maybe put up that 23 Ecodome that we saw Holy Method try and then fail. I imagine they will attempt it some more, but can Polish Mountain anti-clockwise be able to do that as well? Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, that's the thing. You got to turn that maybe into a, yeah, we did it. Although we did lose I Do It in our team pool, earlier this weekend. But I think the other teams can kind of pull off the same spirit as well. And we will be getting into our runs here in just a moment. Bazyro, since you'll be leaving the desk, let me toss you a little curveball question here. If you had to, with the teams we have today, pitch to our audience, our viewers, how they should cheer for and why they should cheer for these 4 teams, what would be your short, sweet pitches on each?
I just want to say, we have Gambit as part of the pool today. Tettles was throwing back references to a Team Ha and Quasi and Norcom potentially timing that key. We are in, but I'll make this quick. There was a little-known team back in the very first TGP called Team Echo. You might have heard of them. That were able to win the very first TGP by getting +1 score in Gambit over other team. Obviously, Echo isn't here, but now and Gingy were part of that team, and they're here. Holy Method, I don't need to sell them to you guys. They're going to be in the same team. Anti-clockwise, these guys have been playing fantastically. They're a new team, but they're veteran players. Cheer them on. Polish Mountain has been ramping nonstop. They're awesome. Show them off. But I want to direct your attention to 9 to 5 here. Is that an Ogavoker? Cheer the Ogavoker on, guys.
Looks like it.
There it is. All right. Well, Zyro, we will see you later on today. We'll toss it over to Nagura. We got that Evoker in here, so we're kicking off the day in fashion.
Yeah, so 9 to 5 bringing in that Evoker. Of course, had a little bit of an issue with the spec variety rule and got their some of their specs banned out. They wanted to play, so they have the Frosty K band, they're playing the Unholy DK instead, and they also have their Havoc Demon Hunter band and their Rest Druid, so they have to play that Ogavoker, or they're switching to the Ogavoker. They don't have to, there's a bunch of other specs they could have played, but they decided on that Ogavoker. And other than that, all the other teams kind of sticking to this metacomp that they have preserved for today, but we see a little bit of a difference still, right? Polish Mountain and Holy Method sticking to that Elemental Shaman, while Anti-Clockwise is playing the Havoc Demon Hunter instead.
Yeah, it's an interesting divergence as well between the teams. Another interesting note is that 9 to 5 could play the Prot Warrior. They didn't get that restricted, but they're choosing instead to deploy the Guardian Druid too. So this is a fun thing to watch here as we have all of our teams. Polish Mountain actually restarting, it looks like, their Gambit run up in the top right there.
We're about 17 minutes in, so this is what it looks like. These are 19s and these are 22 21s, and this is a warrior, druid, death knight, hunter, and demon hunter. We can't really
Spot in the dungeon as Holy Method.
track all of this.
So these two teams doing very well. And yeah, 9 to 5, as we talked about coming into today, they're 4 points behind and kind of 4 specs behind everybody else as well. They're gonna be in some danger today for sure. But I'm excited to see them show off what they can still do in these dungeons. I think they're under no illusions. I think given the way that they played the last couple of days, they really aimed to get here to Sunday, and they've accomplished that objective. So I'm very, very proud of them, and I'm excited to see what that augmentation evoker can do. But yeah, the really, really tight competition today is going to be between Polish Mountain and Anti-Clockwise, because these two teams are within a few seconds of each other for that second spot out of this group. Again, two teams will make it out of this group into global finals, which means Holy Method, the overwhelming favorite to be one of them, would only leave one spot for Polish Mountain or Anti-Clockwise.
Yeah, and even though Holy Method obviously are the favorites, right? They still are only 1 point ahead, right? We've seen them struggle in the 23 Acadome yesterday, and it is possible that they end up not timing it at all, right? It's such a volatile dungeon, and something similar could happen as well for the 23 Gambit potentially. If they get there, right? So that is still something on the table as well. I do think that Holy Method also has very good time tiebreakers in case another team manages to actually reach the same score, or both teams manage to reach the same score as them at the end of the day. Holy Method would still have really good time tiebreakers. So it would be a little bit insane if Holy Method ends up not getting one of the top 2 spots, but it could technically happen. So we're gonna have to keep an eye on that as well. They can't just AFK and do nothing. They definitely do have to work on their score and their tiebreakers a little bit as we go on throughout the day. But we do see Holy Method being one of the first teams to reach that first boss. Actually, yeah, pulling that boss first. And we do see Anti-Clockwise being close behind Holy Method, though, also engaging that first boss now as well.
Yeah, 9 to 5 here, pulling up as well before the boss. They're getting a nice chunk of the enemy forces that they're going to need in this dungeon, but this is the augmentation evoker that we've been talking about. You can see Jisoo there playing the aug evoker. I believe an aug evoker either main or at least one of the main specs for Jisoo there is that augmentation evoker, and exciting to see it work here. A little bit changed since previous versions. You now only buff your DPS players with that Ebb and Might, with that powerful main stat increase, so a little bit less power on the defense for the rest of your group than in the seasons where it was super meta. You can see Holy Method here already getting into that first sanitizing cycle on a Hillbrand. 73% as it entered that phase, and they're able to exit it. This is going to be one of those bosses that there are some keystone level breakpoints where you get an extra intermission, and it's going to mean that you add an extra 30 seconds to the dungeon every time that happens. So it'll be important to see when that happens and if teams are able to just barely kill it right before it reaches that full energy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye on that to see if there's certain teams that can skip a phase while the others do not. Especially maybe on the hierarchy levels, it's gonna be more important there for sure. On the lower key level on a 19 here. I mean, it's a 19, right? It's not even that low, right? I'm talking as if it's like the lowest key level,
Right.
but 19 is still like pretty difficult. And you can see those teams just pulling a bunch of trash onto the boss as well, which obviously is crazy that they can execute this. But yeah, Holy Method now down to 40%. This dungeon in particular, when it comes to two chesting, how close do you think it is for the 19 for them to two chest here?
Yeah, so it's interesting because this dungeon is the dungeon that's been completed the most at the highest levels on live. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's got the... When I think of a dungeon that has a tight timer, I think Gambit... A lot of the difficulty in Gambit is the timer compared to Ecodome. Now, this dungeon has been two-chested even at the plus 20 level on live, so I do think it is possible and even likely for it to get two-chested by our top teams here on the plus 19 level. But I think it's probably a little bit trickier than maybe Ecodome would be at the same level.
So if a 20 was two-chested on live, I mean, 21 technically also be two-chester, right?
Possibly, yeah. So maybe you could do the 19 and then the 21. And then, I mean, the thing is, the 23 has never been done on live.
Yeah.
These players, they have a lot of advantages compared to live, though, right? You have the resilient key, effectively, that you don't get for push keys on live. You have full avoidance. You have full turbo-boosted gear, which people will have on live, but generally haven't for most of the season so far. So... there's definitely some advantages that they have that would maybe make that 23 possible. I think the resilient key side of it is one of the big things as well, so you don't have to keep going into other keystones to rebuild your key each attempt.
Yeah, I definitely think that is the major point here, as both Anti-Clockwise and Holy Method are finishing off that first boss. Looks like their splits are very close to each other. Holy Method just 3 seconds faster, so not too big of a difference here between those two teams. Looking at the count, Holy Method is... I think they were like 2 counts below Anti-Clockwise, so pretty much the same thing. So not going to be any major difference here in the last boss room. I'm assuming they're going to be clearing most of the room in Hooktail's area, because obviously you want that room for the boss fight. Boss fight, one of those fights that we're a really coordinated group for these MDI teams. Probably not going to be the toughest boss, right? But that is... I feel like that's one of the bosses I've wiped to the season the most in pack groups, just because if you're not on voice chat and you're not coordinated, then it's pretty easy to just miss an ad with the frontal, and just as soon as you miss one ad, everything is just like snowballing, and you end up wiping.
Yeah, it has a couple of different mechanics that you need to pay attention to, or else they'll kill you, right? The ads, if you're trying to manage those, you might get hit by one of the orange circles, right? The cannonballs. And also there's that Dispel, and that Dispel does a lot of damage to the group as well. So timing all of those things, thinking about 2 or 3 of those things at the same time, that's just a lot to do. And it's, like you said, if you're trying to have all 5 people in your group do it independently without communicating, it's especially hard. I do think for the MDI teams, this is one of the easier bosses because it doesn't have as tight of a numbers check on it as some of the other ones, right? If you actually have the system down for handling the ads, the dispels, coordinated, all that stuff, it's not as dangerous of a numbers check as some of the bosses that have more unavoidable damage.
Yeah, for sure. One thing to note, I guess also the camera angle. Sometimes you want to make sure that you're all stacking up on the wall to preserve space, and also to make sure you're baiting the ads into the same location, and then you have this huge wall in your camera, right? And you're trying to look around, and all of a sudden you just missed the paddle spawn. But yeah, as we talked about, shouldn't be a big issue for these MDI teams, of course, as Holy Method is now engaging the boss. Anti-Clockwise not too far behind. They're going to be engaging their boss in just a moment as well, as they're about to finish off that last trash group that they gathered up. Still some officers alive too here for Holy Method that they just decided to drag in. Yeah, the boss is definitely melting. Bloodlust coming up in just a couple of seconds here. But I'm assuming they only get 1 more Bloodlust in this dungeon, which means that they're probably saving it for maybe like a bigger trash bowl in the last boss's area, because that trash can be pretty nasty.
Yeah, we did see Anti-Clockwise pull into the boss and activate that lust immediately, so a little bit of a difference in strategy between 2 of our teams, but I agree with you. I think that especially at this key level, as the key level goes up, you probably can lust this boss, and Lust Solia, right? But
Yeah.
here on the plus 19 level, I don't think I agree with you. I think that's unlikely to line up. So yeah, Holy Method maybe will instead of getting a Lust on a boss, they'll use it to pull bigger in the trash section. Although it is a dangerous section of trash. I wonder how much bigger Lust allows you to pull.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Looking at the difference now in boss DPS, it looks like because anti-clockwise did pull the trash into the boss a little bit earlier, even though they had Lust, they're not actually catching up that much on boss DPS. It's very interesting. So even though Holy Method held on to their cooldown, I guess another point to make is if you press Lust on cooldown because you feel like you have to get it back up, it kind of also means it's not going to be as efficient as if you would line it up perfectly with all of your offensive cooldowns, right? Because if you just press it on CD, yes, your damage dealers can say, hey, we're going to press last on CD, I'm going to save my cooldowns. But that's not always something you can do, right? So yeah, pressing last on cooldown, sometimes it seems like it's the most efficient thing to do, so you get one extra last. But if that means that two of your bloodlusts are going to be less efficient, then it might not actually be an advantage overall.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where you can do this sort of mental gymnastics to convince yourself that this should be better, and then you just run it. You run the two dungeons. You're like, oh, wait a second, this one's actually 30 seconds faster. Okay, I guess we were getting a little too fancy here. Yeah, we see the boss here nearly dead for Holy Method. Anti-clockwise at pretty much the same spot in the dungeon as well. Polish Mountain a little bit behind, although they had to restart their dungeon, so their timer is actually also earlier, right? It's not that they're slower in this dungeon by a lot, it's just that they had to reset. And 9 to 5 also now getting in combat, so all four of our teams in combat with Time Cap and Hooktail right now. And the question is, first of all, I guess it's just, will all of our teams be able to beat that +2 timer here in the +19? Because certainly Holy Method are on pace to. I think all of our teams still are in range of that as well. But we'll have to keep checking in with especially 9 to 5, who might be in the most danger of being a little bit slow for that +2.
I believe in the Archivoker. They're going to make up all that time in the last boss room for sure. As we do see Holy
the
Method.
Archivoker specialty.
Yeah. We see Holy Method now move on to this last boss room, and this is what we talked about earlier. This is a room where the trash is just very difficult, so we're gonna see how much they're gathering up here, and if they are committing their bloodlust here as well, like we thought they might do, unless they're just holding it for Solia. There we go, we do see some Star Seers added here. It looks like there's only one though. Yeah, having 2 Star Seers is just something. Oh, there's the last. Okay, so this is a big. Do they have 2 or just 1? I think it's just 1.
Yeah, we just have the 1 Starseer, and now I suspect they're going to focus it down, and then after it dies, and this Pulsar that it spawns dies, they'll maybe go into the 2nd Starseer over there, and yeah, you can see now is already posturing to do just that. So that 2nd Starseer going to get added into this pull. This is a very common and great way to handle dangerous enemies, is focus one down, and then keep the rest of the pack alive and just chain it into the 2nd dangerous mob, in this case, those adorned Starseers. You can see they also CC'd one of those Ritualists off to the side, and that's just because it would overload their interrupts too much to have that one come into the pull while there are other Ritualists alive. So now they're able to bring it in safely after everything else is dead, and I wouldn't be surprised if this boss gets pulled soon. I wouldn't be surprised if Holy Method might be thinking about getting a 3 chest on the board here. 3 minutes and 40 seconds to kill Solia. This boss does have a lot of health because there are 2 phases to it, but it is a +19. You know, it's the lowest level key remaining for Holy Method. If any team could do it, it would be them.
I agree. They still need enemy forces. They can have. They can pull.
They can pull in
more.
on the boss.
Yeah, they can pull that last enemy force that they need onto the boss. Still, you can see the mobs that are just at this fence. They can pull that one in, get the extra forces, which we've seen before in previous MDI. So that is probably something that they're going to be doing. This boss does take quite long, though. I think they do have the damage, but yeah, this is definitely a boss that's a little bit on the longer side.
It is, yeah. The phase 2 as well with the full heal. I mean, it is a lot of total health that you have to do to that boss. Meanwhile, Polish Mountain also charging in to this section of the dungeon, setting up a pretty big pull as well. It looks like they're on a similar strategy here of getting 1 Starseer. That patrol going to be joining them 2 potentially. It looks like maybe they're trying to get out of the way of the patrol, actually. So a little bit less aggressive than Holy Method were in this area. Holy Method, you can see up in the top right, pulling in that trash that they skipped earlier into the boss fight here. So they will have full enemy forces after that's taken care of. It's just going to come down to the timer.
Yeah, Polish Mountain not actually lasting this trash pull either. It's crazy,
Yeah,
actually.
so they'll have it for boss.
They have it from
whereas
boss.
Holy Method
yeah.
have to do the boss without it. Now, 40% is when Solia pushes here, and you'll get that intermission. Unfortunately, Holy Method do have to deal with another spawn of assassins first. They have to deal with this collapsing star, which Jinji is responsible for popping all 4 charges of that nasty raid damage. But yeah, they have all the enemies in this AoE meat grinder under the boss. Once Solia drops to 40% here, they'll be able to fully focus on AoE, as damage is no longer relevant on Solia. So, we have a little bit of an immune phase here. They'll have about 90 seconds after that ends to DPS down. In fact, they'll have less. They'll have like 80 seconds once this immune phase ends. It lasts quite a while. They'll have that much time to deal with a full boss health bar with 1 set of cooldowns and no set of bloodlust. I think they're going to be on the wrong side of the +3 timer, but it's going to be quite close.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be close. And just looking at this timer, I honestly think that the 21 might also be 2-chestable, right? So
It definitely, yeah.
yeah, so I think that not 3-chesting this is not actually...
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine if you 2-chest the 21
If you're planning to do
afterwards,
the
right?
23.
Right, yeah.
As long as you are planning to do the 23, it should be functionally the same. But yeah, I was looking on live, and the fastest 21 was almost a 2-chest on live.
okay.
It was actually by a Brewmaster Monk team. And
wow.
they came in like 30 seconds shy of the 2-chest, which, makes me think on the tournament realm with, all the extra power, the practice as well, the strategizing. I imagine Holy Method do have a plan. I mean, just looking at the timer here as well, they're so far ahead of that 2-chest timer in the 19. I think that if they're able to have a clean run, the 21 would be possible as well. Although a lot of that does assume that the 23 is possible, which, again, has never been done before. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and talk like that as a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, especially with the 23, like, even if, like, the 23 is possible, it's going to be very tough. Just generally, everything is going to do so much damage, right? So from going from a 21 to a 23 immediately, it might mean that you just have to, like, reset a lot, right? Because you go from, okay, that's a big jump in difficulty from 21 to 23, right? So, yeah, we'll see if they even attempt the 23 immediately. Sometimes we've seen teams 2-chest a certain key level, but then they didn't actually go and attempt that key. They did the one lower just because they weren't even sure if they can do the high key at all, or they just wanted to get the practice in to make sure they can even attempt the higher one, right? So this is not, it's not even sure that they will do the 23 immediately if they get the 2-chest in the 21.
Yeah, some of our teams like to just put the point on the board as well, right? Because then you're a little bit less worried about losing and not putting that point on the board, and the worst case end of your day does get a little bit less scary. But if you then end up coming back in and doing the key level higher, it is sort of wasted time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna see here Holy Method entering one last immune phase. Then they're gonna be killing this boss with like 4.5 minutes left before that 2-chest timer. So yeah, you add 2 key levels. And they're ahead, but they're actually only slightly ahead of the 2-chest timer. It's going to be close. It's going to be very fun to watch, actually, when they zone back into this key on +21, which is almost certainly what they are about to do. But our first key of the day is completed. It's by Holy Method. It's a +19, bringing them to 128 points. All of our other teams entering or are also in combat with Solia right now, anti-clockwise. A little bit slower than Holy Method, but they are also going to be killing this boss. Presumably here just before its next immune phase 2. They'll have about 4 minutes to spare before that 2-chest would have evaporated. I wonder if they're in range of being able to do it on the +21 as well. And then Polish Mountain, they had to reset this key once, so their timer, you can see, is a little bit actually faster than the other teams right now. But yeah, they're also going to come down on the comfortable, very comfortable 2-chest side, but not actually threatening to 3-chest here.
Yeah, I'm assuming that all teams are going to... Yeah, Holy Method already back in that 21.
Instantly.
Immediately is zoning back in. Anti-clockwise, yeah, probably doing the same. Actually, no, they... Oh, no, they will. They are. I thought for a second they're going to do a streets.
Yeah, because you go to the same place to start both of those keys. That's tricked me as well many times, but yeah, it's definitely going to be the Gambit out of them as well. So both of those teams in the 21 Gambit, have to imagine that's going to be exactly where Polish Mountain and 9 to 5 venture next as well. Polish Mountain will probably have another immune phase to deal with here before they can put the finishing touches on this boss. And 9 to 5 also looking good. They're also looking on pace to secure that +2 timer in this dungeon. It's a lot closer than it was for these other teams, but, you know, kind of doesn't matter. As long as you get the 2 chests on the board. The only thing that's worrying is, like, the implications for how high they can go in this dungeon.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye on that for sure. In the meantime, I also wanted to talk a little bit more about like the Elemental Shaman versus Havoc, right? Because anti-clockwise having that Havoc Demon Hunter, like, do you think there's any major differences that they have in Gambit in particular from like the Havoc Demon Hunter versus the Elemental Shaman? And when it comes to buffs, like, there's obviously the difference there. But other than that, obviously Havoc Demon Hunter, like, having this like insane funnel, while Elemental Shaman has these like crazy cooldowns that he can play around and utilize, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's actually, I love watching these different comps that we have. I think we're going to see a lot of the same stuff from Holy Method, Anti-Clockwise, and Polish Mountain today, right? A lot of the variety we saw yesterday and the day before was setting them up to be able to play the same stuff as each other today. But it's really cool that we're still seeing that divergence between the Elemental Shaman and the Havoc Demon Hunter, between the teams, kind of disagreeing about what the best comp is. Always a sign of a healthy, interesting. It's really hard for that to be true, right? In the high level of M+. But we do have a replay of how they set up this skip. This is Holy Method skipping past that first Adorned Starseer with Gingy's Turtle and Feigned Death there. That's how they skipped past that annoying one at the top of the stairs that you kind of don't have to pull. And they only pull the minimum ones, right, to get these 2 that are down here.
Yeah, very cool. I do think most of the other teams also skipped that Starseer, so I wonder if they also did it with the Hunter. If they
probably
a different idea. Yeah,
similar idea for all of our teams. It's that's definitely a valuable skip that a lot of people like to do on that part of the dungeon. And yeah, the Hunter. In fact, 9 to 5's Hunter did it and died for it. The other Hunters all did it with the Feigned Death instead, but 9 to 5 with the most convincing Feigned Death that it even fooled our spectators.
All right, so 9 to 5 actually, they have 18 seconds left, so they're
gonna be on the wrong side of this.
Yeah, not getting the 2 chests in here for them. Very unfortunate. 'Cause they were close. Like, it definitely was possible, but with the bunch of deaths and some of the mistakes they had, didn't quite manage to get the 2 chests in, which definitely is not good for them. They already have so much catching up to do. We already talked about this. Like, it would take some crazy gameplay for them, and maybe also like some other teams to just not time a bunch of keys for them to catch up, because they're already 4 points behind coming into the day, and then they would have to just play crazily with all of those specs being banned for them as well. So yeah, not getting the 2 chests here is not great, but at least they're here. They made it to Sunday, right? Which honestly is incredibly impressive considering their seeding coming into the tournament at all.
Yeah, not just their seeding as well. They had a last-minute replacement player that they've had to swap in for their weekend here too. So, I mean, 9 to 5, you could look at it and be like, oh man, they're going to have a tough day today. I would look at it as this is a victory lap day for them already. Yeah, even making it this far, especially with the adversity that they had to run into, right? Having to swap out a player at the last minute. I think they deserve a lot of credit there. And I think, they're pretty close to already toast for making it out of this group. But it's fun. It's going to be fun to watch them play today.
I think they are changing the Evoker. I think I saw the Evoker just leave the group. So yeah. I wonder if they're going to switch it out to something else. They're like, you know what? We tried it. It's like, we don't like it. Let's do something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing multiple players leave the group, so maybe they've got other... maybe they'll... I mean, the thing is, a lot of the meta specs are already restricted for them, so maybe they've got some other pocket picks to pull out here as they go into the +20.
I would love it so much if they just show us that you can do like the high keys, so like all those specs, just gonna fill up our specs that have been played in this group, which we always like to see different kinds of specs being played, right? And also show the audience that you can time these keys with different kind of comms, right? So that'd be super cool if they do that.
Give me a Blood DK and a Survival Hunter in here.
Yes, please.
I need those checked off on my bingo card.
We
Let's see.
see
Oh,
the
it's the Prot
warrior
Warrior. Okay.
back. Yeah, so no more
Yeah,
Guardian Druid.
they've had access to the Prot Warrior. It was surprising they didn't play it even in the
Yeah.
19 because it wasn't restricted for them. I wonder if they thought it was because they may have just shortcutted in their mind like, oh yeah, all of our main specs are restricted, and then like, hang on, wait, Prot Warrior, we saved that somehow, so we can keep playing that. Let's see what Jisoo hops onto for them as well because that'll be their fifth player that was on the Og Evoker. Does have the like the Frost D or the Havoc DH is restricted, which is what Jisoo was playing on the previous days. So gonna have to be something else. Meanwhile, our other teams are fighting Hillbrand. Both Holy Method and Anti-Clockwise are on Hillbrand and Polish Mountain, trying to catch up there as well. It's the Rep Pally that 9 to 5 are opting into. Love it. But yeah, Holy Method. This is a boss fight that is pretty scary. One of the things that is sketchy here as well is each melee DPS that you have, they have such low uptime here. Look at Kush, he's just forced away from this boss so often. Able to still be doing pretty good damage here, but when you have these Guardians under the boss, so much of the time they have to spend running away from those charged pulses.
Yeah, definitely. That's a little bit of the upside here for the Elemental Shaman comp, right? Only having that one melee player versus Anti-Clockwise having the Havoc Demon Hunter as well as the Frost Decay, having to deal with those area of denials around the boss. And I guess you have just some more room to kite the beams around as range as well, not having to deal with those either. So, yeah. Holy Method now getting that second sanitizing cycle. Also some 39%. Take a look at Anti-Clockwise to see how low they get the boss on their side. Maybe a little bit of an indicator of how good their single target damage is, or maybe even their like focus damage is, and their funnel, because both teams ended up pulling trash onto the boss here at the very start again.
Yeah, this is it's a very common. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it's annoying to deal with those charge pulses, but it's so efficient that you kind of have to pull the trash onto this boss if you're trying to do this key at this high of a level. You just need the timer that it gives you. But yeah, it looks like Holy Method. Are they going to be able to beat this next intermission here is the question. 14% on the boss. You can see that energy bar at the bottom is near 70% now. I think they're going to be fast enough here, as long as their damage doesn't fall off a cliff in the last few minutes. And yeah, you can see now he's dragging the boss to the side of the room, which is going to mean, oh no, but Kush goes down, getting Purifying Bursted here. And I think this means we're probably actually going to get that intermission. So this is going to cost Holy Method a decent chunk of time.
Wow, okay,
yeah, 6%.
So it's interesting. Looking at Anti-Clockwise, I think Anti-Clockwise, if they don't have the same thing happen to them with a death here, I think Anti-Clockwise can make it. And we talked about the +2 for the 21 being a possibility. I think this could potentially mean that they might not make it because, that's a big time loss. They also had to finish off the ads as well before they got the sanitizing cycle out because they probably assumed they're going to make it, but then didn't, so they lost quite a bit of time there. Looks like Anti-Clockwise, though, might also not quite make that damage check, though, on their side either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's. I mean, if they pull it to the edge of the room, no. Okay. Yeah. It's a couple of percentage points away. 3%, 2%. Oh my goodness. It's so close. It's so annoying as well when you try to commit to the boss and then you don't, and then you have to, like you said, kill those purifiers off before you can deposit the orbs. Good news for Anti-Clockwise is that they've done it really quickly.
Polish Mountain
wiping though. Oh
yeah,
no.
This is a reset, I think, for Polish Mountain. Like, technically, you could argue that maybe if you get an Anki in here and you rest, that they could maybe continue and still get the one chest, but they're definitely going to be set out of the two chests now. It looks like they are.
Okay, that was us watching Mythic Dungeon International, and we've seen the 19 and half of the 21, and that's it for today.